A baptism in blood. Port Charles faces a day of light that ends in darkness. Port Charles was meant to rejoice. The christening of little Daisy had been planned as a sacred milestone, a moment of serenity and redemption in a town too often plagued by vengeance and regret. Family and friends gathered, not just to bless a child, but to symbolically welcome peace after months of tension. The Corinthos family, long divided by rivalries and haunted by loss, found rare unity in their anticipation of the ceremony. But fate, as it often does in Port Charles, had other plans. From the early morning hours of June 27, the city seemed to hold its breath. The sun rose over the harbor, casting a golden shimmer on the stained glass windows of the chapel where the baptism would soon take place. Inside, preparations moved with the hush of reverence. Carly oversaw the floral arrangements with gentle precision, while Jason stood quietly in the back pew, alert as ever. Sonny, freshly shaven and wearing a tailored dark suit, held Daisy in his arms, whispering soft promises to his granddaughter. But not all hearts in Port Charles were at peace that day. Unbeknownst to the gathering, Acting District Attorney Justine Turner had spent the week finalizing an indictment. Evidence long whispered about, long sought after, had materialized in the form of a witness willing to talk and surveillance footage that placed Sonny at the wrong place on the wrong night. Turner, dogged and unrelenting, had vowed not to let personal milestones interfere with justice. For her, this day, Daisy's baptism, wasn't sacred, it was strategic. What no one knew was that Turner had chosen this very moment not just to humiliate Sonny, but to send a message. No one in Port Charles, not even the most powerful, was untouchable. At exactly 11:42 a.m., as the priest lifted his hands to begin the rite of baptism, the chapel doors burst open. Gasps rippled through the pews as two uniformed officers entered, flanking Turner, whose eyes locked directly onto Sonny. She didn't need to say a word, the warrant spoke for her. The room fell into silence thick enough to drown in. The child's coos were replaced by the metallic sound of handcuffs snapping shut around Sonny's wrists. Jason stepped forward instinctively, but Sonny stopped him with a look. He knew this moment had been coming. Carly, shaking, clutched Daisy tighter, her voice hoarse with disbelief. The priest's hand trembled, the holy water dripping silently onto the marble floor as the ceremony crumbled into chaos. Anna Devane, already on the premises to question key witnesses, arrived just in time to witness the arrest, her expression unreadable. She had once trusted Sonny, even defended him. Now she was tasked with sorting out the tangled web of crimes that might finally bring him down. But even as Sonny was led through the stunned crowd, it became clear that legal trouble was only one thread in a larger, more sinister tapestry. Later that afternoon, a second shockwave hit Port Charles, this time in the form of violence. A vehicle parked near the chapel exploded with brutal precision, narrowly missing those departing the failed baptism. The fireball was as much a warning as it was an attack. Paramedics and PCPD officers scrambled across the scene, trying to determine if this was connected to the earlier arrest or if something more sinister had been set in motion. Speculation spread like wildfire. Was this retaliation from one of Sonny's longtime enemies? Or a new player using chaos as camouflage? Jason, haunted by his inability to protect the family during the ambush, went dark almost immediately, leaving even Carly in the dark about his next moves. His silence was not apathy, it was strategy. If Sonny's enemies were stepping into the light, Jason intended to greet them in the shadows. Meanwhile, Sasha, still recovering from her psychological collapse, watched the news unfold from a hospital television, her body rigid, her mind racing. Cody, her closest ally and unlikely protector, had gone missing during the day. Rumors swirled that he might have intercepted the explosion's intended victim. Nothing was confirmed. Everything was feared. Portia and Curtis, having just arrived with Trina to show support, stood outside the crime tape, their expressions heavy with dread. Trina, whose personal trauma was still fresh from previous brushes with danger, broke down at the sight of Sonny being wheeled into a police cruiser while emergency crews fought the blaze. Anna found herself at a crossroads. Her role in all this was becoming increasingly murky. On one hand, she supported justice. On the other, she couldn't ignore the evidence that someone was manipulating the system itself. Too many things didn't add up. Why the explosion, why now, and who had everything to gain from taking Sonny off the board? As evening fell and the city licked its wounds, the aftermath was clear. The baptism was ruined, the family was fractured, and the sense of safety had been shattered once more. Daisy, innocent and oblivious, slept soundly in her crib under Carly's watchful eye, unaware that her christening had become the center of a storm that would reshape the future of every adult in her life. And Sonny? As he sat in a cold interrogation room, stripped of his title and clout, he understood that this wasn't just an arrest, it was an unraveling. His legacy, his loyalty, his empire, all stood on the precipice. But if history has taught Port Charles anything, it's this: Sonny Corinthos never stays down for long. In the coming days, secrets would spill, alliances would fracture, and an unseen enemy would begin to reveal themselves, not with a bullet, but with whispers. A new war had begun. And this time, the battlefield wasn't the docks or the penthouse. It was the very soul of Port Charles itself.